Everybody. So I think we're still letting folks in, but I think we can get started. Hey, Bakita. Good to see you.
Yes, it's been busy, but I said I was gonna be here tonight so I could see all your beautiful faces.
Yes. Well, glad that you're here for our closing class session. Let me lift this computer up a little bit and then do our land, labor, and life acknowledgement as people continue to join. Oh, it's only 7:01, so it's not like late. Let's see. Share the screen. Hey, Eric.
Dr. Abdullah, good to see everyone.
These glasses. I think that's red, is it? Yeah. Okay. So as we round ourselves down into our last, our final class meeting for this series, Teaching Bell Hooks, we're going to ask everyone, if you're able to and willing and it feels good to you, to place your feet on the ground. Straighten your spine if you can. Put your hands, palms up in your lap. And take a deep breath in. And breathe out. Who can read this first slide for us?
I'll read it if it's okay.
Please.
Sure. Land, labor, and life acknowledgement. Breathe. This land that we inhabit is physically situated in the original ancestral homelands of the Tongva people. We pay respect to the Tongva and all indigenous people, past, present, and future, and their continuing presence in the homeland and throughout their historical diaspora.
Thank you. Let's take another deep breath in. And breathe out. Who can read this slide?
If nobody wants to read, I'll read it.
Sure, it sounds like it.
Okay. Breathe. We pay homage to those who were stolen from Africa, placed in bondage, falsely named as chattel, and forced into labor, who were called slaves, but, but never submitted as such, who have always been fully human with no unbroken connection to the divine and to each other. We honor our African ancestors for the still unpaid labor which built what is now the Americas.
Thank you. Take another deep breath in. Hold it. And breathe out. Anyone want to read this last slide?
I'll read.
Okay.
To both our indigenous and African forebears, we commit to the continued struggle for liberation and reparations, for it is only through freedom and justice that we truly give honor. Ashe.
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 Thank you, everybody, for that. So this is our final class meeting, and you had homework for this class. We're going to get into that homework. But I just want to start with a question that Bell Hooks might ask as she was closing out a class, which is, how are you? How are you? How are you feeling?
I'll answer. I'm thankful. I'm thankful in spite of some of the things that we are living through. And I'm thankful in spite of some of the pain that we're living through, because as silly as this might sound, it kind of goes back to that scene in Friday. We live to fight another day. And as long as we're living and breathing, we can continue to fight. So that's what I'm thankful for.
That's a shame. That's a shame. Anybody else want to share how they're doing? How are you? Nobody else wants to share?
I can share.
Sure.
Yeah, the first thing that came to my mind is, at the moment, incredibly okay. And that's, to me, feels very balanced with everything that's been happening over the past, specifically last few weeks. And supremely grateful for a space like this coming into my life, so that I can be with all y'all and have actual spaces to process that I don't know if I would have had otherwise. And having one of those experiences where I get led back to vision, which is something I've arrived at before. And so that pleasant, warm feeling of not being so far away from where you've been going, to know that I haven't been going in the wrong direction, so to speak. So I'm just grateful. Thanks.
Shame. I like that, incredibly okay. I'm gonna have to remember that. Anybody else?
Yeah, I can share next. Like everybody else, just been feeling really heavy for the last several weeks, and just a lot going on, a lot to, just a lot of hurt. But for the first time in a long while, I'm starting to feel hopeful. And I definitely think being in this group and having this space to meet weekly and get grounded in the midst of everything going on has really helped in my process and in getting me to this point. I'm also a state north of most of y'all. I'm in Oregon. And so the sun hasn't really come out for the last 6 months, and it's finally, the sun's finally starting to come out again. And that's, helping remind me, that even, we go through different seasons and storms in our life, but behind it all, there is still always blue sky. So thank you all.
Yeah. Thank you. Anybody else want to share? How are you?
I can share. I've been meaning to share my voice in this class for the past 8 weeks, and I haven't. So I'm glad I get the opportunity to now. I've been going through a lot of transition in my personal life at this time. And I also am experiencing just a lot of gratitude because I have a lot of loved ones who are stepping in to show me that they care about me. And knowing that there are folks who want to share this space with one another is also great. So feeling grateful.
Yeah, good. Second person who said grateful. Grateful. Anyone else want to share how you are? How are you? So I'm going to share an experience that I had today. I spent the last 2 days at something called the People Summit. So some of you might know that the Summit of the Americas is happening in Los Angeles right now. And the Summit of the Americas is where the heads of state for all of the American countries, or the ones that the US chooses to invite, are present, right? So they excluded Cuba, Venezuela, and Nicaragua, right? But other than that, all of the heads of state, including Joe Biden, are meeting downtown, and they are plotting and planning about what foreign policy looks like, how to exploit and extort resources from especially people of color and the working class throughout the Americas. So from, the top of Canada to the bottom of Chile, right? From, what's the furthest west? I don't know, maybe Portland might be the furthest west to Haiti, right? They are figuring out what they're going to do, how they're going to extort and exploit the working class of these nations. And as that is happening around LA Live, if you know Los Angeles, or if you live in Los Angeles, LA Live, I think Joe Biden is staying at the Intercontinental Hotel. Other heads of state are staying at the Ritz-Carlton. They're plotting and planning on us, right? So the People Summit is how we plot and plan for ourselves. And so for the last 2 days, I've been at the summit, the People Summit, which is the counter summit. And so there are revolutionary leaders, thinkers, organizers, activists from all around the world who are there. And it's been really restorative and also challenging. So really restorative in so many ways to hear from, people who are doing incredible work, right? But challenging because there are also challenges in how we relate to one another. And this morning when I got there, what was really beautiful is we had a press conference with BAJI, which is Black Alliance for Just Immigration, Black immigrants from all over the world, talking about how there are 150 million Black people in the Americas, and we're really not uplifting the Black people in the Americas, and what exclusion of Haitian migrants means, what the exploitation of African Americans means, what it means to have a Summit of the Americas downtown and not walk just a few blocks east and see how we're living in Skid Row, right? And so it was, a really necessary conversation. And as we were having the press conference, or before it even started, a brother walked up to me, and I assumed he was there for the press conference, but he wasn't. It was a brother named Mark. Ebony, you hadn't gotten there yet. A brother named Mark walked up to me, and he said, we've been corresponding on social media. And 2 weeks ago, he was released from Lancaster prison after serving 18 years. And, he talked about the importance of Black Lives Matter. He also talked about how progressive justice reform is what got him released, that he was in prison for a non-murder. And it was the policies of, he named him George Gascon, that got him released. And he wasn't actually there for the People's Summit, which is being held at Trade Tech. He was there because he's in classes at Trade Tech, so he can reintegrate into the workforce. So it was really encouraging to me that he was there and wanting to connect with movement. And then, we had a really, I think, powerful day of talks and panels and lectures and workshops. And then there was someone there who was doing something that I believe was really anti-Black woman. And the East Oakland in me rose up and went to go shut that fool down, right? I would go into detail, but I don't want to give him a tan off of my sunshine. So I'm gonna just say that this fool was out there doing dirt. I said I was gonna roll on him and went to roll on him. And next thing I know, I look back and there's 20 other people who are saying, you're not gonna roll on this white man who calls himself a revolutionary without us, right? And so we were able to shut him down, rid him from the space, and catch him in contradictions. So it was a mixed bag. I never used that term, but it's, you know, it's, these spaces are complicated, right? That there are highs and lows, there's calls for solidarity, and then there's also spaces that you have to challenge. And so I think that as I went through all of that, and as I also am bearing the load from coming back from, we got back from Buffalo really Monday morning, and also carrying that weight, that I thought about the constancy of Black struggle and Black women's struggle in particular. And the need to fight in every space, that the battlefront is everywhere, according to, you know, Paul Robeson says, the battlefront is everywhere. There is no sheltered rear. And so how do you maintain the will and the power and the energy to struggle? And we talked in this class about, you know, stealing back time and finding meditative space. And what I've come to recognize is that for the last 8 weeks, this has also been restorative space for me. So I look forward to coming here, to engaging with you all, to engaging with bell hooks, to thinking about how emotion and spirit all integrate and come together with intellectual work and really do constitute what it is we're fighting for, not just what we're fighting against. We have to fight against, you know, forces like those that are housed in the Summit of the Americas, right? We have to fight against the white patriarchy that even finds its way, white supremacist patriarchy that finds its way even into our own movements. We have to fight against the white supremacist terrorism that we saw play out in Buffalo and is really embedded in the fabric of this nation. We have to fight against those things. But what we've done in this class, I pray, is also think about and start working towards a vision that we're fighting for. And so that's what your vision statements are about, is what world are we fighting for? Is there plotting and planning? We're not just resisting, we are resisting, and we're also visioning and building. And so I come on this last class feeling both heavy and light, feeling both oppressed and free, feeling both challenged and joyful, feeling like I have this restoration that gives me, again, the will to resist and rage and fight and struggle and vision and build. And so that's how I come to you on this last class, and just want to say how grateful I am that we've co-created this space together. So I'll say that as we hop into our closing conversation. Oops, didn't mean to do that. Let me go back here. So I want to share just a couple of questions for you. One is, what are your glows? What things did you bring from this class? What are your glows? What are your glows? What worked well?
Hopefully y'all can hear me. I'm sorry, I'm just now at the airport, so it's not. But my goal is just being a part of the class.
Sterling, we can't really hear you very well.
Oh shoot, okay. I'm gonna type it.
Okay. Anybody else want to share any glows? What did you get out of this class? Out of this coming together, this convening? What have you gotten? Go ahead, Pakita.
I enjoyed hearing the different perspectives. Being able to hear someone else's story and just being brave enough to tell your story, for one, is encouraging and inspiring. When you see someone take a chance and be vulnerable, that encourages you. It encouraged me to be vulnerable with some of the people in my life that I'm not always so transparent with. And I felt like if you all could be transparent with me and the rest of us that you don't really know, that encouraged me to be transparent in some relationships that I have. And the first book that we read, All About Love, now I see why it's so powerful. Now I see why you circle back and added that book to this course. And I think it was meant for me to read at this space in my personal life and professional life to help me meet some goals. I do see how it connects with social justice in a way. At first, I was like, well, how does this connect? But now I understand. So I thank you for this space.
Thank you. Anyone else?
If it's okay, I'll read Sterling's comment from the chat.
Yes, please.
Okay, my glow is having been inspired that folks show up week after week with the intention and passion to do good things and fight for equity and dignity. It's really hard, but seeing people volunteer their time and energy to learn and grow has been warming.
Anybody else?
Love is an action, and specifically the idea of considering, is this aiding in the spiritual health of me and the people that I think that I'm loving.
One, if I can jump in, one major glow for me was what I learned last week about speaking from a place of what I want to see and not from fear or negative, and how that really changes everything.
One of my glows is the idea, or that how we may be activists, I'll just use the term for activists for now, but how do we treat each other when nobody's looking? And that was huge for me, because I feel like somebody articulated something that I had been feeling, but I couldn't quite put words to it. So sometimes when you feel things and you don't know how to express it, it creates a lot of, or for me, it creates a lot of internal tension. So hearing Bell Hooks, or you talking about Bell Hooks, and you know, when she talks about that, was huge for me. So
yes. Anybody else?
I would say one glow for me is watching and learning from you, Dr. Melina, how you connect theory to practice and are always connecting the concepts from these texts to what's actually going on in the world and in the racial justice movement. And that's just been really powerful.
Great. Thank you. I don't know what I'm doing. Huh. Okay, anybody else have something? Oh, there we go.
I can uplift Ryan's comment in the chat. Ryan says, I love bell hooks and Teach to Transgress is one of my favorite books of all time. Having a community to read with has been awesome.
So this next one was supposed to say grows. So we're gonna have to. So what we mean by that is, what could we do differently? What would have been better? What would have made our time together better and stronger? Grows.
It's just that hour went by so fast.
I was going to say,
I feel like we could have used so much more time to dive deeper. And I know it's tricky. Everybody has busy schedules. It's hard to carve time out of your life. But yeah, the hour just goes by so quickly. And I always felt like when it ended, I always just wanted more.
So maybe 90 minutes in the future?
yes, I would agree with that. I was going to say the same thing. Thank you, Jennifer. Like we could have used 30 more minutes at least.
What else? What else would have made it better? Don't be afraid to say some grows.
I can offer a small one. I'll say it with someone, as someone with ADD, the amount of reading was daunting just at first glance, knowing that I might have to have digested it in a week's time.
Okay.
But I understood the assignment.
So would you have preferred, like, to choose chapters in the book that are in the books that are most important, and then maybe do the rest as optional?
Sounds nice.
Yes, for me.
Yes, for me too.
This is Bijal. I'm off mute. I really enjoyed this, and I didn't share my glows, but I would say that I was really energized by finding community here, like very like-minded community and people who like, where I think with reading these books together, it was also like building a shared language. And so the grows might be just like, I think it's not even a grow, it's almost more like a curiosity of like how you chose the two different. I think All About Love resonated deeply with me, but then I was really curious, like maybe because it was only one left, like how you chose the second book, or like what other books are out there, or what you would recommend as like a, sequence of reading Bell Hooks' work. I think I've mostly read other things, and so I wasn't familiar with the Teaching to Transgress.
Well, I think I shared at the beginning, these are not the two books that I was going to use. That I when I was conceiving of the class, I thought about the books that changed me from bell hooks, which were first, Feminism is for Everybody, which made me unafraid to say that I was a feminist. And we used some excerpts from Feminism is for Everybody in the first class. And then the second book that I chose in my mind for the class was Killing Rage, Ending Racism, which I think I want to encourage you all to read after this. Maybe we can figure out a way if we want to do an optional like Facebook community or something. The reason I would say that that one is most important right now is as we talk about white supremacy and white supremacist terrorism in particular, I feel like Killing Rage is, it's probably my favorite bell hook. Well, maybe All About Love. I don't know, between those two. But to speak to this moment when we see white supremacist terrorism everywhere, Killing Rage directly addresses it. And I find a lot of solutions in Killing Rage. The way we wound up with All About Love and Teaching to Transgress is when I was doing the activist in residence position at Prairie View, I got a lot of feedback from students that they had read All About Love and it changed them. Then I put out a tweet, if you could only read 2 bell hooks books, would they be? And hands down, it was All About Love and Teaching to Transgress. Very few people even mentioned other books. Some mentioned Sisters of the Yam. Nobody mentioned Killing Rage. And so that's how we wound up with these 2 books. But I think that Killing Rage would have been really, really powerful to be reading right at this moment. I think the opening line in Killing Rage is, I wanted to kill the man. I wanted to kill the white man sitting next to me on the plane. I think that's the opening line. And it speaks to the pervasiveness of white supremacy and white supremacist violence and how we kill it, how we end racism. So that would be the next one on my list. Did that answer the question?
Yeah, thank you. And
Yeah.
my husband and I are reading All About Love now together again.
Oh, good, good. Are there texts that you would have chosen? Instead of these?
Sorry, I hit mute again. I know Feminism is for Everybody is, I think, just part of a, like, that feels like part of a current conversation right now is, rights are being challenged, basic human rights, and then also Killing Rage. I think those 2 are good. And then like sometimes if I think about womanism, also Ain't I a Woman? Maybe? I don't know. They're good.
I always felt like Ain't I a Woman reads like she was 19 when she wrote it. She was,
Yeah.
Yeah. Anybody else with grows?
I have one mention. I think one of the things I would like to see you consider is maybe for us babes in social justice, and I say babes in social justice in the way that if someone is new to social justice, how they can get involved, because everybody's personality is different. So everybody's personality and engagement in social justice may be a little different. And so that when you're new in it, if you can give almost like a mentor type deal, like, okay, you may not want to do it, like you may not want to roll up on somebody, but this is what you can do instead of rolling up on somebody, just so that everybody knows there's a place for you in the movement. There's a place for you in this work. And even though you may not right now be ready to roll up on somebody, you may later on, but this is what you can do. And this is how you can prepare or be prepared to do the work as you are right now.
That's good. That's good. And it actually sounds like another class. It sounds like there's some follow-up that we could do, right?
Yeah, because I feel like one of the things that I discuss with my students, because that's a question that comes up a lot in my classes, because I teach US history, but I teach it with a social justice lens and how you should be getting involved in the community. But depending on, and especially you're talking about, again, 19-year-olds, you're talking about young adults that may not have gotten that braveness and that toughness about themselves yet. And they want to be involved, but they don't know how to be involved. And so they get intimidated by some of the things that they see, like people like you do that are brave and can go out there. So then they say, oh, well, that's not me. So I think it just showing a way that it is you, like you can do this, because you did that for the students at PV the last day that you were there, and you were telling them how to make phone calls. That was something that they could do within their skill set, and they felt brave enough to do that.
Right. Tangible steps. In BLMLA, we send out an email every week, and it has in it something called 60 seconds for justice, quick things you can do right now. And it's things like signing a petition or following this social media account, or something really easy that you can do. So I think, maybe that would be a good closing slide for each class. Like, here's a quick thing you can do right now.
Something that just popped in my head. Again, y'all, I'm really silly by nature, but when you were talking, you know how you go to exercise and they give you the 3 levels of exercise? So like on this slide, if you could do that, say, okay, this is the advanced movement.
Right.
This is the moderate. So people can kind of grow in their social justice. That would be good.
Yeah. Last class, I shared a flyer because we were on our way to Buffalo. And I was like, I wonder if I could say, do y'all want to just meet us there? Because we're about to go to Buffalo and we need people to meet us there. I started to offer that, but I just said I'll show them the slide. And if they come, they come. But yeah. Some of y'all have come out to the Wednesday protests. So maybe that's the intermediate level, that you come out to the Wednesday protests if you're in Los Angeles. Anybody else with any grows?
Yeah, I have one thought actually about like kind of, because I felt like some people are sharing some personal stuff in here.
Mm-hmm.
And is there a way to like kind of talk more, like it's a little bit like a 12-step recovery where there's like we keep stuff here, or like anonymity? Because I felt like sometimes I'm a little sensitive to like talk about stuff, and also like catching people up on like stuff I've been through. Even if it's just like a couple lines to maybe help us feel like more open to, sharing like you do.
Like community agreements. Set of community agreements. That's a great idea.
Like an implicit, like informal understanding. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Good. Anybody else? Okay, so as I was thinking about what it means to close out this class, I also thought about why we were offering this class in the first place. And this class was meant to be an honoring of bell hooks. It was meant to recognize all that she's contributed to the world and share those offerings that many of us had already received with others, right? Create a community space that we hope reflects the way that she has taught us to create learning communities, and also generate ideas and thoughts and practices that really are an offering to her spirit, which I believe still exists, right? I believe that bodies can be shed, but spirits remain indefinitely. And so I wanted to ask if there are folks who want to make an offering. And what I mean by that is, if she is present in spirit form, what would we share with her? What would we learn? What have we learned? What would we offer? What are some new practices? What would we want to say? What would we want to say if we were writing up a community letter to her? What would be included after having experienced this 8 weeks? Does anybody want to go first?
I would want to include, this is Reverend Juma, a thank you for just her truth and honesty, even when it was difficult.
Does that help you? Does that resonate for you and find its way into your own practice?
Yes, it helps me to stand in truth and honesty when I'm in dialogue with other people. The work that I do, a lot of interface, facing a lot of, just standing in truth and honesty even when it's difficult. Yes, absolutely.
Yes, yes. Anybody else?
Yeah, I can share something. I would want to say how grateful and appreciative I am that she took the time and care to break down such complex ideas in accessible language and make her work accessible to so many different people.
Anybody else?
I would say thank you for sharing the narrative of Black women at a time when Black women weren't important.
Mm. Who was that? Who said that?
That was me, Bikita.
Anybody else?
Yeah, hey, it's Ron. I would say thank you for being a beautiful spirit and writing something so timeless. My daughters are in public school, and I just see like the teachers aren't self-actualized. And like, I'm not going to tell them that. And they tried to give my daughter consequences in 2nd grade for reading a book during class. And it's just like, I read Teach to Transgress, and it's like, oh, okay, I get it now. So I think her spirit is alive and beautiful, and the text is timeless. It's like I could read this in 2022 and apply it to the current conditions.
Just the timelessness of it. She kept saying the current crisis, and I had to remind myself that she was writing in the 90s because it's still today. So much of everything that she's talking about is so relevant. Sorry, that just really resonated with me.
And who was that who just spoke?
Oh, sorry, it's Jennifer. I don't know why my little box isn't.
No, I'm typing, so I don't see. And then before that was, who was it before?
Ryan.
Ryan. I'm gonna say, because she just walked in, is I'm thankful for the way that she challenged my relationship with my children and taught me to love them differently and in a way that is action. Anybody else?
I can read what Bijal put in the chat.
Please.
Bijal says, I would say thank you for using your gift of writing to speak up so fully and so honestly, and finding words that represent so many of our shared experiences through the lens of her own uniquely lived experience.
Okay, say it again because I didn't get it all.
I would say thank you for using your gift of writing to speak up so fully and so honestly, and finding words that represent so many of our shared experiences through the lens of her own uniquely lived experience. And that was from Bijal.
Anybody else? Thank you for that.
Put mine in the chat, but I'll say it out loud.
Okay.
Sorry, I heard someone else. Belle, you loved us with your words and allowed us all to come together and revel and honor you and each other.
To love and honor you.
To revel and honor you and each other.
Who was that?
That's Eric.
It was who?
Eric.
Eric. Anybody else? We have 10 minutes and there's a few more things that I want to get through. And what I'm going to do with these offerings is, one of my close friends was a mentee of hers, and I'm going to send this note on to, her name is Melanie Price. Send it on to Melanie. Melinda, Melanie's at Prairie View, but Melinda's was one of Bell Hook's mentees. So I'm going to send it on to her, and, prayerfully she can pass it on to Bell's family, just so, they may read it, they may not read it, but we're making this offering and we used this space as an offering. I wanted to revisit and close out with the homework that we had for today, which was to identify a site of resistance, revisit your vision statement, carve out your piece of the work, commit to a space and clear building practice. And then I added, identify a space of autonomy. So I'd like to go around and ask folks to answer one or all 5 of these. So identifying your site of resistance, revisiting. Did anybody write a vision statement that they hadn't shared before? I'm gonna stop the share. Does anybody have a vision statement that hasn't been shared that they want to share? Okay. So if not, I want you to think about that scaffold that we were presented with last week. And I asked for you to think about your piece of the work, right? Is your piece of the work in education? Is your piece of the work in the environment? Is your piece of the work in healthcare? Where is your piece of the work? Where is your piece of the work? Who has identified their piece of the work? What is it?
I've identified my piece of the work as being education. And I did not know the homework assignment, but it's funny, I had made a Facebook post today saying my why. And my why for doing my PhD is my version of social justice and finding a way to do the research and share the narrative of my community in a way that is not always from a deficit. And that's my why. And so with education, that's my piece of the work. And I'm carving out this work to it because I feel like it's important. I feel like academia, we do a lot of research on a lot of things and it makes the journals, but it never really makes the community where the change needs to be made. And so for me to be a true change agent, I want to research, I'm going to practice, and I'm going to lead by example through my work.
That's powerful, Bakita, that you know that that's your piece of the work is really, really important. Knowing where our piece of the work is really, really important. Thank you for drawing my attention to the fact that Sterling has shared his mission and vision in the chat. Is there someone other than me that can read it? Because I don't have these. Let me see if I can find my glasses. But can somebody else other than me read what Sterling dropped in the chat? Anybody else have?
Yeah, I can read it.
Okay.
Mission. Through strategic divestment and intentional reinvestment in community, we will restore autonomy and self-determination to the people of our community. We will use our powers of control, purse, philanthropy, education, and decision to transform our neighborhood into an oasis. Vision. An educated and skilled community of employed, responsive, conscious, empowered, accountable, responsible, healthy, helpful, active, self-governing, organized, hydrated peoples who own their own history and future. Site where this will be executed in neighborhoods, incarceration facilities, and in the homes. Where I am meant to be, in a space working with men, finding ways to engage them about womanism, healthy masculinity, and other topics related to equity and fairness in society. Carving out this work, I will build time for it. And that's from Sterling.
Oh, wow, Sterling. I love this. Is anybody else filled like reading what Sterling wrote? I love this. And I want, I don't know where you live, but if you're in town, if you're in Los Angeles, let me know, because who you're reminding me of is this brother named Phil Agnew, who I don't know if you know Phil Agnew, but he's a phenomenal organizer. And he has an organization called Black Men Build, Black Men Build. And it just, you all seem like twin souls with what you're writing. It's all about autonomy and building men in a way that is not patriarchal, that's embracing. And anyway, if you're in town, Phil is here. He's at the summit, the People Summit. So we've spent the last 2 days together. He lives in Florida and is one of the co-founders of the Dream Defenders, but his new organization is called Black Men Build. So I would love, if you're around, to introduce you, but if you're not around, to get you to plug in to Black Men Build. Anybody else? Anybody else want to share? What is your piece of the work?
I'd love to share. This is
Sure.
Ryan. So my vision is helping people with stories to breathe better in their practice, to abolish prisons and practice North American healing practices. And so I used to have a business podcast and written business books.
I think you went on mute, Ryan.
Oh, sorry. So I used to have a business podcast, a business book, and a business community where I taught people how to tell stories for their brand. And now I'm teaching people about other things and using my platform as a white person to talk to other white people about this, because I think the burden's fallen too far on Black people. So thank you for letting me share that.
Thank you. Thank you. And since I'm plugging people with folks, are you in LA, Ryan?
Yeah, I'm here.
I hope you're plugged in already with White People for Black Lives.
I'm familiar with them, but I haven't met them yet.
We would love for you to plug in with White People for Black Lives. They are our John Browns of this current movement.
Okay. Yeah, I will. I have a friend. I live in Mar Vista, and there's like a progressive group here that told me about them.
Great. Great. Anybody else? Here's the piece that I added, and I know it's 7:57, but if we could be a little flexible with our end time, since that's one of the goals anyway, I promise not to go too long. That what I added to the assignment is spaces of autonomy. And Sterling actually typed this in his vision. That one of the things that I'm recognizing, and as Bakita also offered, well, what do we do as we enter activism, right? Sometimes it feels daunting. Like if you think about what the People's Summit is trying to do, we're trying to take down all of these regimes that have plotted and planned for centuries on, Indigenous people, Black people, brown people, working class people who've exploited us for centuries. That can feel overwhelming. So that's why there has to be all of these panels that just begin to scratch the surface around what is abolition, on what should housing look like, on food justice, on ending patriarchy, on exploring democracy and struggling for it, right? And I'm not even naming all of the things that we're doing there. Again, if you have time, tomorrow is the last day. And if you could get there for the 3 p.m. panel, everything's free, so you don't have to pay for anything. But if you can get there, I'm gonna drop the link so you can see what it is. So it can feel daunting. At 11 o'clock also is Cornell West's address is at 11 o'clock. So if you're around, I think I just dropped that only to pro bono. But if you're around at 11, Cornell West is doing their address at 11 a.m. So it can feel overwhelming as you look at all of the branches that stem from your vision statement, right? The goals can go on forever. Every single system requires transformation, requires abolition in the building of something new. And even as we break it down into chunks, into what are the objectives that stem from those goals, right? It still can feel daunting, because how do you, defund the police for real? How we gonna do that, right? We're fighting every day, and we cut like a little tiny chunk, and they're pushing back to try to win more than the chunk that we cut. here's what's been really helpful for me. And I got this also through the 2 texts that we read, that there are spaces that we have autonomy. We have autonomy in our households many times, or at least in certain ways in our households, right? How do we love each other in our households, right? How do we love each other? How do we commit acts of justice in private, right? So what does that look like in terms of how we relate to our children, how we relate to our loved ones within the household? How do we relate to our neighborhoods? I love what Sterling said. Within our neighborhoods, we can create these communities, right? We also have a degree of autonomy if you teach in your classroom. I know they try to take away the autonomy by making you have by the minute lesson plans, but that's not going to work. And so we have spaces of autonomy there. We have spaces of autonomy sometimes in our places of worship. So one of the places that Ebony and I were in Buffalo last weekend was a church. It was Macedonia Baptist Church, where the pastor is committed to social justice. And so he didn't even preach the sermon on Sunday. He invited our foundational lecturer, Dr. Julianne Malveaux, to come give the sermon. And the sermon was all about justice. How does the Creator want you to commit acts of justice, right? So really, I want us, as we walk away and as we think about how to transform the spaces that we might not have as much power in, how do we also transform the spaces that we do have sometimes ultimate power in? And when we begin to do that and it begins to bleed out, you know, if you think about, I had to sign, there was this flag going around because Cuba was excluded. They didn't give the Cuban delegates visas to come to the People's Summit. So we're sending them this flag, right? And they invited everybody to sign the flag. And there was a marker and we're signing the flag and I'm writing on the flag, but the words are all bleeding together. If you think about when you write with a marker, sometimes it's not smooth, it bleeds, right? And so I want you to think about how in our spaces of autonomy, those bleed out and sometimes bleed together. And so the little spaces that we have can bleed and become connected with other spaces. And so there is the building, that's the building, right? That's not just the resistance and building at the same time. Sometimes there's places where we just build, and by building there, we bleed out and we topple, you know, other places where we have less power. So I didn't mean to talk too long, but I did want to offer that and encourage us as we move forward to consider both the spaces that we want to disrupt and also the spaces that we have almost ultimate power to build. And say thank you again. And I want to invite Michelle to offer some words from Social Justice Partners.
Thank you so much, Dr. Abdullah. It's really been an honor being able to be in this space and partner with you for this class. I also want to thank our accessibility partners, Goodman Barber and Pro Bono ASL. If you all are wanting more community, I just want to invite you to some other opportunities. So again, I'm a proud part of the team at Social Justice Partners Los Angeles. We connect, invest, and expand communities advancing racial and social justice. Do that in many ways. We have cohorts of folks who work in homelessness or work to do systems change. We do trainings like these. We also have an anti-racism for white people cohort. And we also have a healing justice portion of our work. And so I'm going to invite Christine to send a link in the chat. We have a no-cost session next week that's led by Natalie Patterson on an ancient tool for modern living and connection called Being in Council. And also to share a link if you want to just stay in tune with the programs that we do or just kind of be in our orbit and email. We'll also share a link in the chat to subscribe. Again, we really appreciate you all being in community with each other and invite you to continue to be in community with Social Justice Partners Los Angeles.
Yes. Thank you, Social Justice Partners. Thank you, Pro Bono ASL. Pro Bono ASL is a partner with Black Lives Matter in everything that we do. So thank you for joining us all the time to provide language justice for our in-person events, for our radio programs, for doing so lovingly. And we want to encourage, I'll share this last anecdote. We began getting down with Pro Bono ASL because in 2020, they just jumped on the stage and just started doing it. They didn't ask, do you need it? They saw we needed it. And this is, again, the work, like what gifts and talents do you have that you can bring to movements? And so just offer it, just do it. That's how we build the world that we want to live in. That's how we build the world fit for our children and future generations. So again, thank you, Pro Bono ASL, and thank you to all of you. Thank you, social justice partners, for also just jumping in. I was just doing some BS on Facebook and they were like, hey, you want to offer a class together? And so I love this partnership with you and am grateful again for everybody who's committed themselves to this work. Okay. I hope to see y'all.
Quick question. I tried to register for the People's Summit, but it says it's deactivated. Can I just show up? Will I be kicked out?
Show up. We put it in the chat. You can just show up, look up the program, go to what you want to go to. There's a check-in registration table when you walk into Trade Tech, and you can register in person as you show up.
Thank you so much. I'm so grateful for your teachings and the learnings and the shared community space. A true inspiration.
Thank you. I'm grateful too. Appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Melina. This has been amazing. Thank you.
Thank you.